real parents, real stories. It's the Meet the Parents podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Meet the Parents podcast, bringing you more chat from some of the UK's top parent bloggers. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and this evening I'm joined by a very special guest, but more of that later. So this week we're going to have a natter about the power of blogging and social media, how it can raise awareness and change perceptions around key issues, how it can give us access to a community at times in your life when you can be at your loneliest or your most despairing, how it can open up career opportunities, and finally a little bit about what it can do for us as individuals. Before we start, let's say a proper hello to our guest voice this week. If you're a regular listener to BBC Radio Jersey, and come on, who isn't, you will recognise the voice of Emma, the writer behind the blog Island Living 365. The award-winning blog, no less, as last week she walked away with the Fresh Voice Award for the best new blog at the BritMum's Brilliance in Blogging Awards. So, hello, Emma.
Hello, what a nice introduction. Thank you very much.
Oh, not at all.
I feel like I should shout Tim now and get it out there. Let's put the elephant, get it out there. So yeah, last week I embarrassed myself when I saw you, but luckily you didn't see me. I did literally fling my arms at you and shout Tim across the room. There you go. So thank you for having me on.
A story that you've since recounted on radio. So before we launch in, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your family and the blog?
Okay, so I write Island Living 365. I started writing it when we moved to Jersey. Before we moved to Jersey, we lived in Yorkshire. And even though I'm not a Yorkshire girl born and bred, I've lived there all my adult life. And I've always thought of Yorkshire as my home. So it was a big upheaval to come to Jersey. Before we moved to Jersey, I was also a full-time teacher. Now that I live on Jersey, I'm a stay-at-home mum to our two girls who are 3 and 6. And I kind of felt that I needed something for myself, which is why I started my blog. I'm always asked how to describe my blog, and I always struggle with that, actually. I don't know how to describe my blog. Before BritMums Live, I read a thing called elevator pitches, that I should have an elevator pitch, and that petrified me. And I tried to come up with a way of describing my blog, and I still couldn't. When I started it, I thought I'd come up with a really amazing, lovely lifestyle blog, but actually it sort of evolved into me ranting most days, like 5 days out of 7 I tend to have a rant. So it's not really a lifestyle blog. And actually the tagline, I think it's a lifestyle magazine from By the Sea, is the most rubbish tagline ever. And I could really do with a better tagline. So if anybody has any suggestions, I'll be very grateful to receive them.
One of the great things about both blogging and social media is the way it gives individuals a voice to talk about issues that are important to them, or have a rant in Emma's case, particularly the kind of issues that the mainstream media don't always pay attention to. So if, for example, you take the Meet the Parents podcast team, you have Dave and John, who write about what it's like to be a stay-at-home dad in a world that's largely set up for mums. Hayley writes about her daughter Natty's Down syndrome. She's talked about it on TV, on radio, and in the mainstream media, and she has an audience of over 10,000 followers on Twitter. Wow. And then Vicky writes and vlogs honestly about her ongoing efforts to conceive. Heck, we even talked about the recent EU referendum. I wrote a series of posts, one before, 2 after the referendum, and they're already amongst my most viewed pieces this year. And Amy as well, she's spoken in the past about the struggles she's faced returning to work after maternity leave, and generally by parents in the workplace via her Parents at Work series. Now, she's just written another post about why the Brexit vote may open doors for women but close them for parents. And it's great, I think, that blogs and social media provide a platform for think pieces such as this that open people's minds post-referendum to specific issues beyond immigration and racism, the economy, jobs and leadership contests. I've not yet seen anything in the mainstream media even remotely like this, so it's a real eye-opener that hopefully lots of people will have read. But it was kind of like this during the campaign too, wasn't it? So often the media and politicians reduce the referendum to a single-issue debate, if you can call it a debate, and with both sides spinning a web of, at best, half-truths. Often the best place to find detailed facts and data was blogs and social media. I mean, okay, it's often also the worst place to find any semblance of reasoned debate, but you take the rough with the smooth, don't you? Now, Emma, as a Channel Islander, I guess you were one step removed from what was going on in the UK. And actually, that's a good point, isn't it? Because the islands aren't actually part of the UK, are they?
No, and it's one that actually often causes a lot of confusion. It does with my friends. They don't sort of understand it really. But technically, we are not part of the UK. We're actually a crown dependency. This means that we have self-governance and judicial independence. We have our own laws and money. We have £1 notes here, which I quite like because it means if you have like 10 £1 notes, you can pretend you're really rich when you're not.
Oh, I'm old enough to remember £1 notes.
Oh, really? We still have sterling though. We use the sterling as well. But what it does mean is that the UK represents Jersey when it comes to international conventions, and Jersey is still consulted as part of this process. So I'm not sure if that is clear or not. With regards to the EU, we have a special relationship. As part of the European community, we have free trade. Otherwise, we are not part of the EU. So basically, we sort of pick the best bits, I guess you could say. We don't have European taxes. On the other side, though, we don't have maternity leave over here. We don't have NHS. It's all private. So every time we want to go to the doctors, we have to pay £60 just for an appointment. Okay. So, yeah, we tend to lag behind in European legislation. So they're only just bringing in equality laws. It's only just started coming in, so that's quite, behind really. And there's still a long way to go on this. Also, because I'm married, I'm not really seen as an equal to my husband. I'm not allowed to sign the tax return. He has to do it for me, and I hate that. It drives me bonkers. So, yeah, we were actually eligible to vote in Brexit because we've been living on Jersey for less than 10 years.
God, that's really complicated, isn't it? So, given that, I guess you had the advantage of being slightly detached from all the sound and fury of the campaigns. What did you think of the way it unfolded, and did you think that social media played much of a role in driving the debate?
I think social media was incredibly important, actually, but I have to say, from watching the debate, watching it all unfold from Jersey, I don't know if you had the same sense as you were actually in the thick of it, but I just was appalled and disgusted by both sides and how the campaign unfolded, and I just thought they seemed to be using scare tactics. Both sides focused on just ludicrous things which have since come out as being lies, and I felt that they really relied on projecting this fear. So we did see both sides using Twitter and Instagram. We did see them using Instagram to post really nice slick videos. However, they were not as slick as they could have been. There was embarrassing mistakes that were being made. The Campaign to Remain released a series of posts aimed at young voters. It was quite patronising, really. They weren't well received because the ads were supposed to mimic how young people speak, and apparently all young people speak by dropping the G from the end of their sentences. And quite rightly, this made young voters very angry.
I can't imagine why. It's like your dad trying to be cool with the kids, isn't it?
Oh, no, exactly. They had this golden opportunity. And I just think, who is it that's advising them on these things? I mean, well, it's the PR agencies. You just think they would know better than to do something like that. I read the other day that the Brexit campaigners were actually more successful in their use of social media. So a recent study showed that on Instagram, 32.6% of users expressed clear anti-EU views across the most popular hashtags, and that was compared to just 12% of users posting their pro-EU views. So it seems that the Vote Leave were being more outspoken with their use of social media, and the Vote Leave actually generated almost more than 5 times as many posts for each one post of the Remain camp. So I was really surprised by that, and I think it was a real shame that the Vote to Remain camp, didn't use this, I think is a really powerful tool, that they didn't use it more effectively.
I hadn't seen that before. Those are interesting and really quite dramatic stats. And I mean, overall, I'd agree with you. The campaign was a shambles on both sides, and it's a real shame because for me, this was a big opportunity to get younger voters interested and involved in politics. But the turnouts among under 25s was particularly poor, and I do fear that the nature of both campaigns may drive away many younger people, and particularly if you're getting inappropriate use of social media, it's it's something that young people are so attuned to.
Yeah, no, it's a real shame, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I get, maybe I was a little bit different to many in that I'd already made up my mind even before the referendum was announced, so I wasn't going to be influenced by the campaign one way or the other. But yeah, I was appalled by all the self-serving political rhetoric and the way spin gave way to barefaced lies from both sides.
So now the Brexit, now going back on what they've said, even though there's like evidence of it on posters they've made, because they said they were going to put more money into the NHS, I think, didn't they? And now they're backtracking and saying they never said that.
Yeah, and I think both politicians and media were complicit in that, and it was appalling the way that the popular media certainly gave up any pretense of providing an objective assessment of the facts. And it was terrible. That often, as I've just said, often the best place to go to for any detailed examination of the facts was social media. Now, admittedly, as we know, social media also tends to be home to the most vitriolic and heated arguments. Yeah. But I think experienced social media users, and particularly younger people in that category, they know when and how to steer clear of that kind of noise. And the facts were out there. But it was really sad that they were largely to be found on computer screens rather than TV screens or newspapers. But as you say, it does underline the powerful role that social media can play for information-hungry users who want to know the truth and aren't satisfied with the usual 15 to 20 second sound bites that you get on the 10 o'clock news. And of course, subsequently, social media has become the conduit for spreading the word about the sudden rise in race-related incidents. There were some great examples of people collating tweets and storifying them to present a collective narrative of what was going on. And there is a danger of this type of coverage being very one-sided, but sometimes that's okay to get a point across in situations such as this. And I have to ask this: did you see the video of the incident on the Manchester tram where 3 young men launched a sustained attack on a fellow passenger while others stood by quietly, not wanting to get involved?
I've heard about it and I've read about it, but I actually can't bring myself to watch it. And I know that's probably a terrible thing. I should be forcing myself to watch it, but I think it's probably because after the Bibs, I witnessed a fight breaking out on the tube actually because of Brexit, and it got quite nasty and they were squaring up and it got violent, and at the people were filming it instead of intervening, and that's what I found equally disturbing. Nobody was trying to say anything or trying to calm down the situation. Everyone just stood there with their phones out and they were filming it. And I know that in some ways that's good, because then that message is going to get sent out there, and we're going to see this behaviour, this terrible behaviour, and hopefully it won't be repeated. But then it also raises the other question about what are we now? So, I mean, I don't know. I just found it really disturbing.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because, on the one hand, potentially you're performing some kind of useful service by videoing an incident that can then be useful for the police. But on the other hand, it does feel often actually all it is just a race to get a video posted on YouTube as quickly as possible.
And exactly, it wasn't, and they weren't reacting. It was almost like there was from the people watching, they weren't having an emotional reaction to it. It was like the act of filming it meant they was removed from it, yet this was happening in front of us, and it was terrible and it was heartbreaking, and it shouldn't have been happening, yet nobody was saying anything. Everyone was too busy filming it.
I guess at least this story had an upside insofar that social media was instrumental in getting the story out there quickly. I know Channel 4 posted the video on their Facebook account very quickly. It went viral and it did contribute to the 3 men involved being identified and arrested in pretty quick order. And, you know, it made a change from seeing all those cat-based videos that are shared around endlessly.
I like those cat videos. How dare you?
Finally, moving away from the whole Brexit thing, because I think we've probably done that to death now, and back to BritMum's BML last week. What did you think of the bloggers' keynotes? Because obviously things got better once that awful X Factor auditionee with his song about his kid liking Pink had finished. You know, he should absolutely not be allowed near a microphone again. Oops. We also had Juana talking about what it's really like to lose a child, Helen talking about her battle to get Parliament to recognise the risks of type 1 diabetes, and Alison talking about her struggles with mum being such a large part of her identity. But, you know, what was it like for you hearing bloggers' keynotes for the first time?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I did feel they got the keynote balance just right, actually. There was a good range of posts to really test your emotions. So that was really fantastic. I think that for me, the keynotes is the highlight of the whole event, actually. What I like about it is that I feel like it's a real privilege and a real honour to hear the words of the actual author, how they are intended to be heard. I just felt it was really, they were all incredibly powerful posts. You know, we were sat in this huge room, and then when they came up on stage and when they were reading their posts, you almost forgot that you're in this massive room and you were just solely focusing on them and listening to their words. And it was incredibly moving, especially the post from Mama's Heaven, which I just felt was so raw and powerful. Yeah, it was just amazing. And it does provoke such a strong reaction. I'm not ashamed to say that I did cry my eyes out during them because it was just amazing. So, yeah, no, I love it. I think it really is the highlight of the whole event.
Yeah, I don't think you were alone. I think, you know, they do provoke a really strong emotional reaction. And, you know, I felt exactly the same after my first BML last year. And it was one of the key drivers that inspired me to start doing this kind of parents podcast business. It's completely different to the internal voice that you put in your head. And certainly what I find now is that when I read other people's posts, having either met them or having heard them read their own posts, that I now start to hear it in their voice rather than in my voice, and that completely transforms them.
It does. It's amazing, isn't it? It gives another dimension to the post, and it's just absolutely brilliant. People have said to me since meeting me, and now they're reading my post, they can't get my Essex voice out of their head. So I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or not.
I think that's part of the beauty, isn't it, about actually meeting people and hearing them, that you do start to hear this very diverse set of voices rather than your own interpretation of them. And, you know, you add that to bloggers' ability to tell stories that can open our eyes and touch so many people. You know, it makes this long-form format of writing such a powerful complement, I think, to the bite-sized servings that you get on Twitter or Facebook or so on.
Yeah, I think blogs are incredibly powerful, actually. And, you know, the stories that you get in blogs, you know, they're all important. They're stories that have come from the heart, and they wouldn't be in a newspaper. That doesn't mean they're less newsworthy. They're just, really, I really do believe in blogging, actually. I'm quite passionate about it. And, I just think it's amazing. I keep saying amazing, sorry. But it's amazing.
So there you go. I guess we're agreed that blogs and social media are good and amazing for allowing anyone to talk about any issue in more detail and more quickly than would ever previously have been possible, unless you just happen to be a BBC journalist or have a literary agent.
Well, yeah, and actually there was a study done the other day, I don't know if you saw it, where they did the 10 top most trustworthy people in the public eye. I can't remember who number 1 was now, and I should be able to remember that. But number 2 was bloggers. And, that people actually are turning to blogs now instead for, to find information, because they see them as being more trustworthy than our mainstream media.
First, there was Thatcham Dad and his solo singing performance at BML. Now, from the makers of Pitch Perfect and Pitch Perfect 2, come the latest a cappella singing sensations as the Barden Bellas make way for the Beer Garden Fellas in 2016's surprise summer smash hit, Pitch Imperfect. This time they're not in tune. Listen in horror as these fellas murder classic song after classic song with their discordant caterwauling. From Pretty in Pink to Beyonce's Single Ladies. No song is safe when these guys take the stage. Showing in no cinemas now. Warning, bring ear defenders.
So now let's talk about some of the other ways in which blogging and social media impact our own lives. Now, a lot of parent bloggers start writing either when they're pregnant, unsure father, or soon after giving birth. Some do it to capture precious moments, others do it as a means of earning some income, while some do it simply to share their feelings or blow off a bit of steam. So, Emma, was there a particular reason why you started blogging?
For me, starting my blog, I felt a bit lost actually. I'd moved to Jersey. I had walked away from a successful career, and now I was finding myself struggling with being a stay-at-home mum in this new environment as well, without family or friends. So I'd sort of gone from doing two major things really, and I was struggling with that. I was feeling really sorry for myself, and I hated the fact that I was feeling sorry for myself because that's not the type of person I am. I couldn't get myself out of it, and I was trying to think how to give myself a big kick up the bum. And because I was on this amazing island, and now I was moping around, moaning about missing Yorkshire all the time. But then I sort of had news, really sad news, from back home, because I've had two friends with battling cancer. One had brain cancer, and the other one was battling breast cancer. Both very young, both my age, with young children. And it kind of gave me the wake-up call that I think I really needed. You have to make the most of the life that you've got. You don't know when it's going to change. So if you want to do something, I think you have to get out there and do it. And I've always wanted to write. I've always banged on about that. If I had the time, I would write. And there I had the time. So I thought, well, this is it now. I really need to give it a go. I need to start writing. So that's sort of why I started my blog.
One thing that does often surprise many bloggers and non-bloggers is how strong and supportive the community is. Now, people read each other's blogs, they talk about each other's experiences, they offer support and advice, both technical and emotional, and generally form a virtual network of friends that occasionally comes together at the big blogging conferences or maybe at smaller brand events and such like. But Emma, has the virtual community helped you at all? And to what extent do you find yourself participating in the community?
I love the blogging community. I'm always, I read so many blogs. I think there's not an evening every week. Every evening I will read probably at least 10 blog posts, maybe even more than that actually. I really love the blogging community, so I will go and read as many posts as I can. I like to leave comments. And I like to use Twitter to communicate from. I do find it sad that sometimes I don't think Twitter is being used properly as a way of having conversation. But I do like to have conversation on Twitter. I just love the community. They have been so supportive to me. When I've been scared about pressing publish on some posts which have been a little bit, I thought, this is a bit too personal. I'm revealing a lot about myself here. I'm worrying about it. Their response to it has always been amazing. It's always made me think, what am I worrying about? I've got nothing to worry about. They will support you when you need supporting. They will laugh with you when you need to laugh. Everybody I have come across in the blogging community is just brilliant and lovely. So yeah, I really think it's a fantastic community. I even talk to one blogger on the phone now, so that's really lovely as well. And I have several other bloggers that we email a lot too, so that's really good. Though I was sad to read about a few posts about Brit Mum Lives where some bloggers felt isolated, so that was a bit sad because I didn't, I haven't come across anything like that myself, and I didn't see anybody looking sad. And if I had seen anybody looking sad, then I would have gone across to them and spoke to them. So that's a bit sad, really.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it, when you read stories like that, because people are generally very open and welcoming, and to a large extent I think you get as much out of events like this as you're willing to put in. I guess the issue is that it's often so frenetic with so many people trying to catch up with each other that you almost kind of have to just launch yourself in there with a smile and wait for people to say hello back, which can be really difficult if you're there and you don't know anyone and it's your first time and so on. So it is a real shame when you read stories like that, because on the whole, actually, I find these events are much more open and welcoming than, say, kind of work conferences.
Yeah.
I've said before that the community has been, for me, one of the most surprising but pleasing benefits that I've gained from blogging. I mean, I've made so many new friends through blogging in the past few years. I've set up collaborative blogs and podcasts with people I've never physically met. And through social media, I know more about what's going on in these people's lives than I do with, many of my real world friends. And, through things like Twitter and our blogs, we do each have regular little windows into each other's worlds, don't we? And that keeps these relationships going, even though we don't often meet face to face. And in my case, it's led to several close friendships with people who I may actually only have met face to face once or twice, or even in some cases not at all. What about you? I mean, I know it's relatively early days for you, but do you feel that many of the relationships that you've started to establish through blogging have started to cross the line into what you might call proper friendships?
Oh, I think so. I think because you are in the blogging world, you are quite open, aren't you? And you're sharing so much of yourself that I think that can only lead to, genuine relationships, actually. So, I definitely have established what I would now term as proper relationships, and going to BML last week sort of cemented those friendships. And since then, I've spoken on the phone to one of the people that I met at BML. And it's, yeah, no, definitely. Really fantastic. And just like you say, how supportive everybody is and how everybody is willing to help anyone. If you just are struggling with something, all you've got to do is ask and everybody will bend over backwards to try and help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that social media and blogs have enabled many parents to do is to work for themselves from home, whether it's writing blogs or managing social networks for clients, or earning money through sponsored posts and working with brands. Dave and John are good examples of this, and both Hannah and Mark work freelance too, but there are mums who work with social media in a way that allows them to work school hours only, or have flexible hours where they do work in the evenings or at weekends instead, and that greater flexibility to work is hugely beneficial and appealing to many people. How about you, Emma? Can you ever see a time when you would be using your writing skills to set yourself up, for yourself, or maybe as a full-time writer?
Yeah, that is something I would really, would love to do. But I don't have a clue how to do it, first of all. I don't know where to start because I haven't been blogging very long. It'd be nice to make some money out of something you love doing. I really love doing this. Before, as a full-time teacher, I'd work till probably 10:30, 11 every night. So it'd be, and I do miss working. So it'd be nice to find a job that sort of fits in with my family life. So if there was a way that I could do that with writing, then I would like to do that possibly. But then I have concerns about selling out my blog, I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't want to lose what my blog is. I feel at the moment that my blog is very much me, and I just worry about if I go too far down the sponsored post line, then it's not going to reflect me or what I set out to do with my blog. So yeah, I'm at a bit of a crossroads, actually, if I'm honest. Maybe the Jersey Evening Post could offer me a column. That would be rather lovely, but I don't think that's going to happen. Or the radio. I'd love to go on the radio.
I think I'm in many ways quite similar. I've never really had any aspirations to turn writing or blogging into a job on its own, but it certainly opened up some new opportunities that I might otherwise never have had. I mean, if you'd told me 12 to 18 months ago that I'd be up on stage singing in front of 400 or 500 people, or being interviewed on radio, which hopefully I'm going to be doing next week, fingers crossed.
Yay!
I had to follow your example. All that I'd be friends and trading regular insults and innuendo with a Sunday Times best-selling author, I'd have laughed at you. But all these things have happened as a direct consequence of me being a blogger. Already, you've talked about some of this already, haven't you? Blogging and social media have opened up some doors for you as well, haven't they?
It's been amazing. I honestly never, in my wildest dream, thought that it would open up these doors that it has opened up. You know, when I started my blog on that rainy day, it was raining all the time in January. It still is raining, actually. 6 months ago now, I just, I didn't really have a clue what I was doing or how to get. You were one of the first people I connected with on Twitter, actually. You pointed me in the direction of Abby from You Baby Me Mummy, about how to find out how to get, people to read your blog and everything. So, I had no idea how where it was going to take me. And now I'm a Huffington Post blogger, which is amazing. And that was because I sent them one of my posts about where I compared my 3-year-old to Kanye West and asked if she was Kanye West, and they liked that, and luckily they asked me to be a regular blogger for them, so that was good. And then I've had some other opportunities as well, so I've been on the radio quite a bit recently, which is really lovely. But again, I've had to go out and find those opportunities. They haven't sort of landed on my lap. I've been a bit cheeky and tweeted people, which isn't like me. But I thought, I've got nothing to lose, so I might as well go for it. So, and then today I was reviewing the news this morning. So that was very exciting too.
Tell us a bit more about what it's like to be on live radio.
Oh, well, I love it. I really, really love it. Actually, I've got a real taste for it now. The Jersey better watch out. No, it is nerve-wracking, but don't worry. It is absolutely brilliant. As soon as you go on air and it's going out live, you just go with it, because I think you have to forget about who's got the radio on at home. Just imagine you're just literally sat there with that person having a chat, and it just becomes a lovely one-to-one chat, really. I would say next week when you go on the radio, don't overthink it, and just don't look at all the technical equipment that's going to be in the room. But it is really, really good fun. I bet you'll really enjoy it. I think you'll really enjoy it. I think it'll be really good. So just enjoy it.
I suppose at least I've done podcasts before, so at least I know what a microphone looks like. But we'll see how it goes. Finally, beyond all the events and awards and all the other paraphernalia that goes with living our lives on social media, let's talk a bit more about the impact it's had on us as individuals. Now, other than having RSI in our thumbs from perpetually scrolling through social media timelines, that is, because I think for me, blogging started out as an itch that needed to be scratched. From my teenage years, I always had an urge to write, and blogging gave me a real outlet and a focus for that urge. Now, normally I am the shyest, quietest, most introverted person in the room. I'm not normally the sort of person who climbs up on stage to perform in front of hundreds of my peers, but that's what I did at BML. And
well, you did really well. You would have thought that. You're amazing.
And it's one of those things, I think I now have a level of confidence when I'm in my blogging persona that I don't generally have in other aspects of my life, although I am finding now that some of that confidence and expression is starting to emerge elsewhere. So, it's only taken me 40 odd years to get there, but that's the power of blogging for you. Any reflections from your end in terms of what blogging has done for you so far?
This is a cliche, but it has changed my life. I had lost all my confidence when I became a stay-at-home mum. I sort of lost who I was. I just didn't have any confidence about myself, and so I always go on about it in my blog, that how amazing blogging is, because it has given me back again. But that it is true. It has allowed me to be myself again. Before I started my blog, my friends from back home just didn't understand they were like, what's happened to you? You're not the same person anymore. Why? So starting the blog has allowed me to be me again, and to sort of give myself back to me. Being a stay-at-home mum, sometimes I think you feel like you can't have an opinion, or you can't. Certainly living on Jersey, sometimes I feel like I can't have an opinion, or I can't express myself. So having a blog allows me to do that, really. And I hope last week when I won the award, my reaction came across. It was just to win. That was the icing on the cake, really. I'm just absolutely loving blogging, and I can't imagine my life without blogging now.
So there you go. If nothing else, blogging and social media is good as therapy, and just good for the soul, which isn't so bad, is it? And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, here's where you can find Emma and I online.
My Twitter is at IrelandLiving365, and my blog is IrelandLiving365.com.
And I'm at ThatchamDad, and my blog is slouchingtowardsthatcham.com. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and on Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. Do please give us a follow on Twitter at ParentsPodcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. So thank you very much for listening this week, and do please join us again for another episode next week. Good night.